So I have invited you today to come and talk and, share space. I love your space, by the way, the background and the
Yeah,
light and
we're
your
in charge of our space.
sculpture and the way that the plants are playing with the light. Oh my God, it's beautiful, as well as are you. And I would really love for you to take this space now to kind of lay it out. And, from whatever starting point you choose, whether it be from your birth or an
Oh, that's a good
event
one.
or wherever you want to start, go for it.
All right. Well, I have no idea just what will come, but when you just triggered something totally unexpected when you said from your birth. I don't know if you know it, but I've written about my birth as if I knew every bit of it. And the piece is called October. All of life happens for me in October. I was born in October, and we had a lot of deaths in our family in October, and it just all comes together in October. But my little story about my birth came very suddenly one morning. I was writing, and uh, I guess it starts. Uh, what was it? It's been a while. I slipped out of my mother while she had a martini in one hand and the phone tucked under her chin. You know, and then she the I don't know, so much happens in this story. Sisters are screaming in the hallway. I give them new names. A dog is scratching at the door. My mother places me in a orange polyester pillow to quell my tears, and she just gets off the phone. She has to go. She has to go to rehearsal, and the she stands up to make the announcement. Your baby sister's here. The placenta goes sliding under the dresser, turns into the size of a pea that slips up my sister's nose one day. A crazy birth story. That's. So I rewrote my birth, but it felt really true. dog, dog leaps Dog leaps into the room and licks that little baby clean while the shower massage sucks the milk from my mother's breast. Well, anyway, I had no idea I'd start there, but yeah, that's the story of my birth. Both of my parents were directors of theater, and so she was a very busy woman.
Both of them.
And
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. My father at Ohio State University, he ran the theater there, and my mother ran the theater at a small college in Pennsylvania. She was the theater, and yeah, we just thought of her today because you asked me if I had my lights, and I said, "Oh yeah," because my mother has a used to say she would yell. It would be dress rehearsal or something. She'd be like, "Find your effing light." But it became a joke
Wow.
amongst people in the know that "Find Your Light," was then put on her for a memorial for her. "Find your light." But she meant literally like find your light, create your light, step in your light. Sometimes it's both, right? Sometimes I say to actors often, um, if the spotlight's on you, you use it to intensify and focus more deeply, not to distract you. If the camera's on you, you use it, or an audience or here, I'm being held in this space. So I use it. I have to use it or try to focus and be present. So it's another way of helping people when they're presenting or acting, that the camera is holding them and the audience is holding them, and that can free them rather than distract and make them nervous, hopefully. Yeah. Yeah. So as since my parents have come up, I had no idea they were going to come up. Um, did not want to have anything to do with theater. Certainly not production. I'm still like that. Because when you're a kid and you're brought to rehearsals on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and it's 11, it's midnight, you just think it's so boring. They do things over and over again, and it's just so boring. But of course, somehow it gets under the skin, and somehow I ended up, in fact, teaching acting now. That wasn't the plan. I was more about the writing. Yeah, and I, as you know, I did my master's, Master of Fine Arts at Tisch for screenwriting and playwriting. And then I was just so young. I was just so young. And so somehow not in alignment, like my peers were. And I went back to school for another master's in directing and theater. And I did an acting class. But because I had a master's, I was asked to then teach acting. And so since then, acting as well as writing has been what I've been doing, what I do. I do so much of it, teaching acting and writing. Or I think I wrote you, I'm finding my titles to courses. I have so many different ones. And the newest titles are things like Artful Conversation, bringing your stories to life. I like the word artful. It's the fine art and joy of acting without having to be an actor. I love working with people uh, for whom it's just a way of living a little alternative world space for them, providing them. I work with adults. I did work with kids for a while, but I like adults because they're more generous listeners for each other. I love adults, working with adults. Yeah.
You did the two masters.
And it's crazy. So,
and then I'll write it down after
you. Screenwriting and playwriting and way back, I was just right after college and in New York. And then, yes, the theater oriented towards directing, but you take a lot of acting classes. And something happened there where I walked off the page then, where the things I was creating little original pieces. Oh, sometimes it was even with beyond words. Like, I don't know if you saw the piece because it was back in San Diego. I did this. No, that was Binghamton. No, where I do a sound recording and it accompanies a woman and a man after they come home from a date, and they're, you just know what's going to happen next. And she's like, just wait, she goes into a bathroom and this dark light comes on her and she's alone. She starts taking off her clothes. She doesn't get anything, but she's washing her face. And she's like at the beginning. And so she's moving to my voice, but my voice, I recorded it so many times. I wanted some specific words, but you couldn't grasp what it was about. So it was like, and then it shifts and she's like, and there's other stuff going on in her mind and you can barely catch what it's about until she's furious. Like she's and all the time she's undressing and washing her face and doing this stuff. She's been through a whole journey. Then she's like just in her nighty thing, and she comes out, and this poor guy's just waiting there without his shirt on, and then she reaches towards him. But you just saw she went through a whole thing in this bathroom. Yeah, it's another thing I didn't expect to be talking about. But yes, this was me for my second master's, kind of starting to walk off the page and create visually or using, light projections or movement, getting more movement and voice and all sorts of stuff that actually do play a pretty big role in who I am especially in my facilitator space today. And sometimes I sing, so in a performative way. But yeah.
Was there a point when you decided to go from being the performer, being the writer and the performer, to being the teacher or the facilitator?
Actually, it's the reverse. And that might be a little bit of a glitch for me, but I have been teaching since I was 19. I was tutoring writing at Bard College, right? And then I was tutoring at their wonderful, amazing language and thinking institute, where people, freshmen, come for 3 weeks and they basically unlearn everything they learned in high school. And you learn processes like the 5-paragraph thing. And you learn processes that help you connect in a very real way and to engage with. It's a really long processes, to really academic writing sometimes. We'd read it, we'd dialogue with the author, we'd select sections, words, and then free write, lots of free writing, learning free writing. And Peter Elbow, he's brilliant. I still use his prompts from a book called Writing with Power, where he just opens things up for people. So, like writing a classic prompts. Like if you're writing about a space, a place, write as if it were blind, write as if there were invisible forces. If you're writing about an abstract concept like love, marriage, for me, is an abstract concept. Freedom, democracy, it's like, what's that? Right? What is it? Love, what is that? So his kinds of questions are like, imagine it's an ecosystem, like love or freedom, or democracy. What does it eat? And what eats it? It's just, he's got just so many of those. Or writing about a person, what sounds. I love sensory. It's my world. What sounds do you associate with them? What smells? So Bard, way back, but I was already tutoring way back then. Wow. And then also as a graduate student, then too, because I had that sort of stipendium or teaching assistantship. So I was teaching expository writing, but also I did have some students that were older than I was, I'd wear a suit jacket. That's a change in me. I'd wear a suit jacket, like I really am a real teacher. I no longer have to wear the suit jacket. Yeah. So things started that way quite early, being on the teaching side of both writing and then acting after that. Yeah.
And at some point you studied creative arts therapy. Is that?
It's not art therapy, but
Okay.
I went to Switzerland here. I was kind of losing touch with my own arts in a way. And I went to an introductory week in Switzerland, to Sancerre, Switzerland. It's in the mountains, no cars. It's quite beautiful, glacier. And I was riveted, and it's called expressive arts. And it's like mine was a pre-doctoral sort of thing. It's a weird certificate called CAGS, Certificate of Advanced Graduate Studies. Yeah. And that I had amazing teachers and an amazing teacher, Paulo Canil, and he was in his 80s and just a little beautiful dynamo. And but expressive arts, training, coaching, research, education, leadership. I had an amazing group of people. It was an amazing group of people. They should all come. And and they had experience also in art therapists. Only a few of us were really just directly from the world of arts, and others had had a lot of experience either in therapy, art as art therapists, or like with, I guess it was the one with the UN or with UNICEF. I'm not sure. She's diving to just brilliant people. And yeah, so we were all doing this sort of pre-doctoral certification. And but expressive arts is, I even prefer the term integral arts, maybe, so that because it's not all about expressing, but it's about using all the arts, and each facilitator would obviously lean towards their own. There are painters there, and I'm not a visual artist, although I play, but but you combine them. So let's say you make this sculpture. I mean, you don't necessarily make a sculpture like that during expressive arts work, but you make a sculpture, a face, and then you go on and maybe you write a dialogue. You write what the face says to you, or you combine the arts. And then I thought, oh, I'm home. Because it's everything. I do movement, but I'm not a dancer, and I really do movement. And I sing, but I'm not, and have a lot of voice, but I'm not a singer. Yeah, and I act, but I'm not really an actor. And with writing, it's a little mixed. So I am a writer, and I'm also not a writer, and I teach and facilitate writing. So this combination was really amazing to me, and it was all about using arts. And to help people get out of a stuck place. Just generalized, if you're depressed, if you're in a relationship problem, if you're blocked in some way or traumatized, it is a stuck place. And so you listen, and you witness, you listen, you ask the right questions, coaching like questions. How would it look if it weren't so, and the way you want it to be on Monday, whatever, that opening up people's issues. But they're never referred to it, as opposed to therapy, perhaps, in expressive arts, as problems.
Mm-hmm.
They're not referred to as problems, and the expressive arts facilitator does not come with a set idea of a methodology of some kind, other than a process of witnessing and facilitating, but not Jung, not Freudian, not this or that, not Gestalt, whatever. It's the client is the person in front of you, or for a lot of people, they've been to Peru and they're dealing with a whole community, or wherever they've gone to. Some people are really involved in larger life issues and going to countries that are in currently traumatized situations. So sometimes you're working with hundreds, sometimes you're working one-on-one, sometimes pairs, groups. But they listen or find their way, they feel out the stuck place. Mm-hmm. And then Paulo Knu calls it decentering. It's a funny word for me, but that you take them, you say, let me invite you into this other space, like this space, let me invite you into another space, and then lead them in some kind of art process or combination of arts. And you witness what's going on and what they've done. And so it's very live and in the moment. And then after you've done, and you step out and you do what in expressive arts they call harvesting. And you step back and you look at what's been made, what was created in that space, what happened, and you start asking questions. Like some people say, I hated it. If someone says like, I hate it, I felt like I just wanted to leave, I didn't want to do this. Then you say, but you didn't leave. You know what I mean? What made you stay? Or but a lot of times they connect to something, and it connects. It always connects. It always seems to have a connection to the stuff, to the issue. It arrives. Oh, I quote Paulo Coelho all the time. It arrives, it dreams itself. I say it in writing. I say it in acting classes. It's a beautiful phrase, and so, yeah.
Something that we were talking about before we started recording was that I was mentioning how you oftentimes, like you did it, you asked me to do an assignment, and instead of calling it homework, you called it home joy, which is sweet. And also I was asking you for your bio before, and you had talked to me about another way of looking at, referencing who you are, defining you. And I thought, this is who you are. You're always opening up things to look at it in a different way. So were you aware that you always do that? Is that something that just comes naturally to you as an artist, as a creative thinker, to take us out of our staid ways of being and regimented ways of thinking and writing?
That's a really good question in a way, because I'm like, my husband's coming to my mind. And then I think when I'm talking to him, he's like, wait, what? To the point, like, what? So sometimes I think it is who I am, like yeah. But I also think it's trained or practiced, a practice thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know anymore. But I always, now that I think of it, so you're really, you'd said life trajectory. I'm like, no, I'm only in the present. I don't have any past. There's no past here. But what just popped in my mind was the way I used to answer questions. So I guess it's not just as a facilitator teacher that I do it, but questions in like college, like for exams, and I'd be like, oh my God. Like I had a physical science sort of class. I'm like, I'm not really sciencey. Could be maybe, but and I was like, I don't know the answer to this. So I drew pictures that I felt like represented a kind of evolutionary answer, like, and I just like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna, I'm gonna answer this. And my teacher he counted it. He's a cool guy. He was also an unusual guy because he jumped on the chairs and like showed us what atoms did and stuff. And he was fantastic. And so many of his students weren't coming to class because it was that easy science course, and he didn't notice. I always came, I took down everything, but I didn't know the answer to this one question. But I drew the picture, and it's full credit, And I love that parallel universe thing. If you define, like even a space like this, and those were those pictures I was talking about with, my acting classes in Zoom. We define this space, we come close, we get to push through. So that's what I guess I did do it, and I did it another time in some test. And I'm like, I'm not sure what he's after.
Yeah.
So I made up, what I'm after or something. I don't know how I did it. I really just did it. I'd go into a frame and it would have its own logical developed substance and I also got full credit for everything. He's like, you got an A, Carolyn, but you were living in a parallel universe. That's where that word came up from him. So I guess I don't know what that is. It's a permission. I had a faith. I don't know if I have it now. Actually, I'm just trying to get it back for my own writing, that because I think I lost it once you get really trained and you want to produce, but to really have that faith, it's my own thing, whatever, just do your own thing. And I don't know if if something like that would never go over in Germany. So that's like, the teachers would be like, no, you cannot draw a picture. So that's a beautiful thing about America, I feel. Yeah, definitely. And so I guess it was there now that you've asked me that question, but it's now I'm trying to think what the question is again. Not answering something like in classes, I don't like to ask, or what I actually started to notice. Like I taught a group of seniors once in a storytelling class. And I don't even like the word seniors. There are all sorts of words that I kind of want to make up new things for. We did an introductory round, and I noticed that some would be like, "Oh, and I don't have any grandchildren or anything," or I'm not married. I didn't really have. It's what they were somehow was being communicated, and I'm like, I am never going to have an introductory round again because there's not for me. There's only that they are, and that also language. And even when I teach many less of those. Oh, I just slipped in Germany. Less and less of those language classes, but they already have a lot. They're already whole and complete. You already are everything you need. So I try to avoid things where, I mean, you're so much more than I'm a microanalyst or whatever. That's probably not a thing. And sometimes I do find out later, though, in acting classes that, those beautiful students are running in after a whole day as a student of microbiology or law, and they blow me away. I love them. I honor them. And, but I kind of like that I didn't know they were lawyers. I'm like, well, you're still going to get on the floor and act like a kitten, right? That's not, I don't think I've ever had people do that, but it could happen.
At UCSD, where I went to school, the most profound experience I had was before I was actually enrolled. And it was it wasn't even like a registered class. It was just a kind of an event. And these artists were hosting this evening, and they had us doing, like being fish on the floor. And we were all like going over each other, being like a school of fish. I was in heaven.
Yes.
In heaven. And it's so nourishing. You feel expanded in consciousness from those kinds of experiences. I mean, I love what the theater offers. I don't know if that translates into any, like what else it translates into, because we define so much. I'm just thinking in
terms of. You mean the writhing on the floor, what that translates into? Or
no, I'm thinking of how we tend to think of, like, then you channel it towards like getting an acting role and being paid. And
in my most recent class, I don't even want to say class, but world. It's for me. That's what it is.
Beautiful.
And by the way, my worlds are full of so many different people from different countries, because I'm working in English, so it draws people So Hungarian, Ukrainian, Italian, Spanish, Brazilian, a couple of German sometimes, American, British, Irish, Lebanon, where, the people are from all over. I love it. But what I was going to say is in that introductory round, what did I say? I do an introduction, but it's like, what would you love, to have? I don't say, where are you from? What are you doing? What's your goal? But what would you love to experience?
Mm.
And sometimes I say, what should we know about you? Like, what's that thing we should know about you? Occasionally I throw that in. But basically, this time, I was so happy about this because some of people are coming back to me for these acting worlds. And we've done some, by the end of last class, we got into some intensive more actor training stuff like monologue scenes. And then it's like a trigger goes off in me and I'm like another person. I'm not the fish on the floor. I am the New Yorker. You know this from me from when I was doing that project in New York. I think like I just, it's another part of me. But so I was actually kind of relieved, even the ones coming back. Oh my God, I just want to have fun. And then I know Alex said this, but I want to have fun. Every single person, they are so ready to leave the news, for one thing. They're so ready to leave their day-to-day jobs and they want to have fun. And then I said, well, I thought you might be saying, you want to go further with your monologue, do more monologues, improve my skills, and they're like, oh yeah, but that's fine. And just that desire, it was so unified. And then in this case, I was really glad I did an introductory round. We'd already warmed up and done the crazy stuff, not quite the fish on the floor stuff. That's too soon for these guys. But you were already with artists. These are actually, a lot of these people are not artists. And some of them, to my surprise, even after doing a warm up and playing with us, then say, this is the first time I've ever done this. Like, wow, that's fabulous. Because they just leap. They leap.
Is there any part of your skills and all of your creativity, let's say your creative palette, that you have not been able to use as much that you would like to use more of? Go ahead.
Oh, well, you said, is there any part of your creative palette that you'd like to use? Then I'm like, my thought was all of it. You had asked me some questions. You'd sent me some possible questions. Yeah, you did. You did your home joy.
Feel free to address those.
No, well, one just came to my mind. Oh, what was it? It was what can people do? If they're stuck, or what, if they have that feeling. Just the question. Everybody has that palette, right? That you're talking about. With the kids, we're like, we all have just this. We contain multitudes. It's the palette with so many colors, so many possibilities, so many. We have voices. We have bodies. We can write. We can speak. You get out a paintbrush, get the clay out, throw it against the wall. So we all have that. And so you had asked me what can people do? Well, I guess sometimes I think, I thought today, I'm like, yeah, I could kind of use myself as a teacher, like as a writing, especially, like finding your space. And I do feel that it definitely has helped at least some, quite a few people that sign up for that acting class because they need the framework. They're not going to do it alone. And it's about us. And I write in groups, and they say that. They say, I wouldn't do it otherwise. They sometimes want the prompts and need the prompts and the space, you know. And so I probably need more of that for myself, but I'm offering it quite a lot, you know, these spaces. At the same time, they are my light too, you know, and during COVID, and I taught acting and I taught writing, and acting, I loved it. You know, we got close to the screen. We reached through, we did mirroring. We were so intimate because we were holding this. And so what a phrase that came to my mind back then, Louise, was in holding, like you, in holding, I am held. You know, you did Reiki on me once when I first arrived. Reiki, sorry.
Yeah.
And I could have been so jet lagged, you know. It was right after I arrived. And I don't know what you did, but I don't know. There was, I was held, you know, and activated too. I don't know what's going on. You could say more, maybe. But what's also, you are also in the space, you know, there's something the in between, you know, and we need that in between. Acting is us. It's us, you know, so that in between space. One of my sensory prompts that I've recently given people, well, it's one of a list of 62, but was, you know, the space between two lips. That's that imagined space. That's where the life is before the kiss. That living space. And I can still feel that space, Reiki space, that the air between us moving, whatever's moving between us. I don't know if I answered your question at all, but in that holding, I am held. So it is also a place of becoming. The teaching facilitator space is also a place of becoming. But I would love to. I do get very happy. I have gotten very happy, I must admit, at those times when I have performed, when I'm done, and sometimes during, and actually, I am someone, you know, I've met with these women. We sing. We called ourselves the Boogie Woogie Girls because our first song together was Boogie Woogie Buga Buga Do Do Do. It's very scary. The harmonies are they're hard, and I don't consider myself a singer, but I do sing, and so sometimes during performance, I'm just too nervous. We're just going through it. So I am someone who loves rehearsal. I love just being on my way, but it probably would be good for me to arrive too. And sometimes I've walked on clouds after completing something that I was usually so nervous about beforehand, and then step into, and I've arrived. And it's not about me. This is very important for the actors, especially. You know, if I can get to that point that it's not about me, then that's a good place to be.
And it's a lot about the connections that you make in your work and all the different ways that you express yourself. So sometimes in your letters to me, you will write about the connections you make with the students. So many beautiful references that you've shared with me. Moments of insight and transformation that have taken place from an exercise they've done.
Oh, God, oh my God. They just
Do you
blow
want to
me away.
talk a little bit about um, any of those special moments with students? Sounds funny to call them students, participants, whatever you.
Yeah, participants. There are actually just so many. Um, in the writing realm of writing, it's quieter. Some of them don't know me. Like sometimes I think, oh, they don't know the acting teacher. Sometimes it's a little still for me, even, but um, what they do. Louise, we talked about it once, right? Write for 11 minutes, 33 seconds,
All right.
sometimes it's 9 minutes, 33 seconds. It's like my favorite things are the free writes, not sometimes the prompts. Every once in a while, somebody hit, this is the New York part coming out, hits something editorially, it's complete, as fiction, but the things that just make me that fill me with awe, is what they write in 9 minutes and 33 seconds or 11 minutes and 33 seconds. And now, of course, if they've been with me for a while, it's always about the particulars. So the teacher and me say it is always particular. And through the particulars, you touch the universal. So there's no news story that's going to hit you. Like about the Ukraine here. There was a news story, they're in a bunker, actually in a cellar, I think. And then there's this little chocolate birthday cake and a mom singing to a 9-year-old. That's the particular little, Georgi's birthday, and so it's always through the particular that we reach. And so any generalized way of being in the world is not quite, or expressing yourself is not going to hit home even for you. Now I've forgotten the question. I forgot.
Sometimes I forget the questions too. I'm just so interested in where it takes you,
Oh,
It's just kind of
you
like a
mentioned my
diving board.
students. It's just so much going on, and I asked you,
Yeah.
because the most recent one was my student Yevgeny, and he prefers to be called Eugene at the moment. And actually, now he's told me another one, Zenya or something. I have to look at it again. Um, okay, so he told a story, and I thought this is what it's all about for us and for me. This is a metaphor for me. I want to say ahead of time, I'm going to share the story, but first, it was a smaller group of actors that night. And first, though, you exercise paying attention. Paying attention is everything slowing down. These are little prompts for people saying, how can I get out of a stuck place, right? Paying attention, tenderness. And so we practiced in the space, like honing in on a singular sensory experience and going to it as first as an adult and then as yourself as a child. What a smell that you could not stand in the current life, and then just a singular smell. And we practice it. I have them do it again if I feel they're going into storytelling, cognitive storytelling, instead of activating, that's the word, activating, inviting the actual life of the sensory experience in that moment in time as held by us in the room. And so we did that, and it was a practice first by each of them. And we're not there yet at the beginning. We're awkward, or one of my students Irish, and she her sensory experience was, she's like, oh, the rain's in my face, and it's just rushing at me. And then well, she wasn't quite like that yet. I said, turn around, start again, find it, and with the breath of it. And then she turned around. She's like, it's in my face. And then we saw her go there, because I was like, oh my God, that would not be my favorite experience. Because she's like, it's the water slipping down my coat and down my neck. We're like, oh, and she's like, but I'm actually warm, and I'm like, oh, she's there. Because of course you're warm in your body, but the rain is rushing. She's on a bike. Rain is rushing it's slipping down into my shoes. We're like, oh, but that was practice, but we can do it for ourselves. Like, am I actually drinking this water right now or not? Right? So honing in and practicing, in their case, also expressing it at the same time, living it. So we did that first. And then then I broadened it into a more storytelling prompt. It is like, I want to just keep giving everybody the same prompt. I just feel like they might not, like, I wouldn't have a job if I kept giving the same prompts, but it's like, just do the same thing, like, over and over again. And this would be, describing an unforgettable experience. And then there's a list of those. It can be horrifying, frightening. It can be ecstatic. It can be sweet, just, or simple, So, but in this case, I gave the added impulse that it could be something indescribable. It's something you couldn't explain. It's a little beyond explanation in the ordinary world, outside of your ordinary experience, which I know you, Eloise, have had so many of those sorts of experience that they just more than I could ever imagine. And it's amazing to me. I'd love to hear those. Luckily, I've had the fortune of hearing about some of them. But so Eugene was in the swimming just as the sun had already gone from the sky, and it was gray, and he's at the Black Sea with a friend, and they go into the water, which is actually warm, thank goodness, because they did not want to leave the water, because when they swished through it, they saw all these glimmers, he said. There were glimmers everywhere. Lights, little lights. Every time we swished, they would do, it was phosphorescence, and we kept swishing, and then they would die down. And he said, I wish I had, spider's legs everywhere so that I could activate and see. I wanted to see every single little tiny light, and it was just fun listening, and then they'd go to a new place because they die down. It's interesting, right? A dynamic, and then they do it again until they just grow tired and they had to get out of the water. They sat out on the cliffs. It was actually rocky. It wasn't like a sandy beach. And then they heard this kind of, and now all the sensory stuff is coming up because it's a practice thing, right? So they hear this like, I don't know what they're hearing, like a ticky tick tick clicking. He tried to do the sound and I couldn't do it, like click, click, click. And then this kind of like some kind of screeching sound, and he went like this, is like stretched out, and then he's like, it was dolphins. And so what a whole experience. And so for me, I couldn't get these little lights off my mind, and that what we're doing in our classes, and what I actually want to do at parties too. Otherwise, during parties, we're talking about, maybe in Germany, I'm not sure, maybe at home too, I'm not sure, but politics and saying the things we already know, and like, oh, climate change, it's like, not that those don't have value, but to, like you were saying before, to end your sentence in a way that you didn't know you were going to end it, and to not know what you're going to say. You're becoming in the space. You're living in this space through the other people, and sometimes it helps that it happens.
Sometimes it helps what? Yeah. Sometimes
it helps.
To help prompts. Well, when we were talking before recording, and I was mentioning how on your computer, as you write a sentence, and sometimes you'll write the first few words and then it will say, you meant to say this, right? And so it'll give you the rest of the words and you can just kind of click over there like, yeah, thank you. And sometimes I feel like, yes, because you just want to get it done and sent. And other times it's like, how dare you, or sometimes it's just like, that's not what I was thinking, or other times when I'm thoughtful, it can be, how can I say it differently? Because yes, you did guess what I was going to say, but now I'm going to think of something different. How can I say it differently?
Yeah.
Because
partially
then you know that it's a thinking
prompt.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you're always choosing those, then you're in a rut in the way that you're thinking.
Yeah. And there might be other sort of, could be a metaphor for many things. Like, we might already be finishing our sentences, the same way over and over again. And they say that scary thing, what's that number of how many 60,000 thoughts, and like how much percentage of it is the same as yesterday?
Exactly. So is there a way that you would guide me or someone that is in that moment of writing, and then it says the sentence, and you want to encourage me or someone to think differently? Like, what would you say? How to find something else?
What the best exercise that I would do all the time? Yet another one. Well, I have so many prompts, but because two are interviewed, they're fighting each other out right now. But one is, if you're writing about a person, just write about their hands. Like, it's always beautiful. It always works. And you've never done it before necessarily. You think, my mom was born in ba, 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 right? And yet, if you just write about her hands, she will emerge in her wholeness. But that's something else. The one that really came to my mind was what I call the wonder exercise, and it's a known exercise. It's word throw, so that if you were to get your favorite notebook out right now, plenty of room for freedom in it, and then I might give a prompt like an unforgettable, or I don't know, something, or no prompts at all, and then I have. Sometimes I collect words at the start, an animal, an object, like just like a bookmark, or a ladle, or and then maybe a tool, some kind of tool, colors, and I conjure up words from people, but it takes too long usually, so I often come with the words myself, and and then I usually try to encourage them to go past their initial, like, animal, cat. And then I say, think of some others, armadillo. There you go. So here we are. So we have all these words. Now I slipped in for myself, all sorts of sensory. I've slipped in probably a musical instrument. I've slipped in pulse. I've slipped in body parts. Earlobe, throat, wrist, because that really gets something. It just, by involving the body, it reminds people. We write, we act. It's all through the body. We live this life through the body. That's it. And so I sneak in lots of body words, or sensory, sound, smell, I throw those in too. But armadillo and mango are also important. And then I feed it to people. Just about every 45 seconds, a new word comes at them while they write. And the game is, I call it a game, is to incorporate them, to weave them in a way that makes sense within the story. The story could be a little bit crazy or have a crazy person in or have a crazy dream in it, but it needs to have a logical sense in itself. So if you suddenly, like one example I seem to often give is that, like, let's say I walked out the door into the darkness. It was a black, black night. And then this woman throws in the word mango. What are you going to do? Right. So, and it's not like suddenly a mango hit me in my face, but it might be the icky, the sweet taste of the mango, turning in my stomach, or it might be, and this is what becomes beautiful, and this is the kind of thing that begins to happen, just a mango strip of light. It's black, black night, except for that mango strip of color and deep, into the horizon, and people have to get clever, or like that mango song came to my head, and then on and on, and it's amazing. It's always amazing. Partially, I think, because we are actually natural storytellers like that. We know how to hold things together so that they make sense. We need that somehow, and it happens so naturally. And so, but also people are free of judgment, free of blame. Like, what could I do? An armadillo showed up. How do I make that make sense in my story so far? They do. And it's so fun. It's so fun.
It's beautiful work because it's so freeing. It sounds so freeing.
Yeah.
And God knows that, as we're reading titles and headlines, or, if we're looking at the news, for instance, on any given topic that the news is covering, there are all these ways that we're being told to think about something, right?
Yes.
And it's usually tragic. It's usually something bad, even when it's not, it's like negotiable or, open-ended, but let's think of it as bad. Like even with the weather, something that where the newscasters will say, well, it's so nice right now, but the weekend will bring rain. Like, oh my God. I feel so offended when they put down the rain. I love the rain. I want to defend the rain.
Great. Yeah, we do need that, right? And they could be vehicles for a different sort of attention. I mean, there is a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death, something like that. It's so old. And I used to teach it a long time ago. And so I guess there's that side where you get a news story and then they'll say, have a good night. That's it for the news tonight. We hope you have a good day. Tomorrow there'll be the sun will be shining, and so you are like, everything's okay. I guess that's the other side, but I am totally with you because, like, a phrase that came to my mind during COVID and lockdown, I was writing to a friend, and maybe it was you, and I wrote, meanwhile, the beautiful meanwhile. And it was like a revelation for me that there's always a beautiful meanwhile that has nothing to do with war. That's flying across the sky in a V formation right now. And a friend of mine told me recently that, I don't know who this was, a woman who might be an ambassador in Israel. I'm not sure, Israel. And she said, this war will be over. It will be over. So what we really should be spending our time on right now is, how does peace look? How will peace look for us? And I think that is a good redirection of anything, from highly individual depressive states, your own little ravaged feeling or your own raw hurt self. But what does my whole self look like? And it takes time. It's actually an exercise. I said it took me a long time. You said I'm flourishing, but I actually did the work. I did a lot of work, where I asked myself those questions and wrote words. I'd be like, I feel like shit, I'm full of doubt. Whatever. I have so much doubt, whatever. And then counter it. I'd literally draw a circle on the outside, all the crap. And it was a lot of crap, helpless or whatever it might be. Fed up. Who knows what it was going on. It comes back sometimes. But on the inside of that circle, for me anyway, I'd counter it with the truth, the beautiful, meanwhile truth, like, well, actually, I'm not helpless. I'm going to go make myself a coffee. Or the most simple thing, like, I'm sitting here, like I'm lost. Well, actually, I'm sitting on my couch, right? But it's a process. It's tending. There's these words like tenderness, tending to, paying attention. What is that word tending? Where does that come from? I want to look it up, But it takes conscious tending, I think, to redirect, like, and sometimes turning off that news so you have time for that and space so that you build yourself up, so that you fill yourself so that you can bring something to really hard things.
Exactly.
Where sometimes I'm really fast and not furious, but in a kind of fun way in my work, a little too fast. But in your work, I think too, there's this time, or that checking in, going to the body and really slowing down. And where is this? And, like you said, self-care, or where is this? And what is this? And does it need to be here right now? Does it help me right now to have my throat tight? Does that help me in getting dinner done for my kids? Or does it help my world in any way? Compassion is something else, the heart opening, but closing and tightening with fear won't help, So when you said about going to demonstrations and stuff, I wasn't, so there was a big women's march here. What was that, 2016? And it was a huge thing. And I wasn't going to go. I was just so devastated. I was not going to go. But these women I had spoken of before, one invited me to her dinner party. I'm like, okay. And they were making signs. And I'm like, okay, I'm going. I guess I'm going. I'm making these signs. And then I went home to make my own sign, which it's kind of like a different kind of sign. Like I had an umbrella and I had lights strung all over it and also. But so I'm making this sign, and my son comes in, with that cynical voice and said, "Mom, you're not going to change anything." Right? And I was so glad this came to me. I said, "Oh, yes, I will. Yes, I will." I said, "I will change how I feel." And I did. And so if only for that, and that sounds selfish, but it's not. It's like, and then going there and seeing others and being with. This is, I always tell my students, but that's for other reasons. I say be with, stay with, but this is a different kind of being with, but being with the others. And not just that, not just was pretty big here. It's quite big. But then actually going home, blessings to the internet in this sense. going through the marches, all the images of the marches throughout the world, massive, all through the world. Then you thought, oh my God, I went to one too. It was littler, sometimes you have one in some little town in Milwaukee or wherever, in the States. And they're just there, but they're part of this whole scroll.
If I'm faced with someone that is enraged, then I will shut down. That is not helpful. Right.
No.
But I am outraged. I am outraged by things that are happening. And that's what I'm talking about. That kind of rage where it's not like I'm ready to hurt anyone. I am outraged. I am disgusted. I am. And so I want to join with other hearts who are saying, no, we cannot, we have to, whatever it is, we have to cease fire. We have to,
you're right. To tunnel, I don't want to say supplement, but translate the rage into some form, give it a place, or express it in a frame, or meet, like you said, and it's for us, this big us. It's for us, and our rage is for us, and the us includes people who are tortured, it's for us. And sometimes, acting class and writing can be beautiful spaces because the stage holds, they are safe spaces. You can do anything you want on them, within, as long as you're not harming another, And I have a beautiful student. She's been in both acting, then writing, and another for years and years now. Emily Woods. She's actually quite a gorgeous person in the world. She was in a band here, a famous band. So there's an Emily Woods tribute page. It's fun to see her, all her costumes and her beauty. Anyway, but she's also in my writing classes right now. But with the George Floyd story, she's African American, and she just did not know what to do with herself. And we had this acting class in this Zoom space. And then I said, well, go ahead, just, go, and she just didn't know, what to say. And then I said, let's do there's this acting classic thing is gibberish, So I said, don't get the words out. It's beyond words anyway. Make sure you're not getting the words out, but try. So this always works. This is one of those prompts for actors. It's like, you are so moved. You love this thing he's given you so much. The words are stuck. Can't. And then they might say, oh, I love. And I'm like, that's too many words. It's like, and then it's breath and it comes to life on the inside. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. Don't be able to speak. And because speaking, the end of your sentence, oh, I love it. It's the end of the sentence, right?
Yeah.
But you can't say it. You just have to live it. And you want to tell them, but you can't, but in the same way, she had this rage. And then I had her do this. It was so brilliant. She was so brilliant. She's just like, she was brilliant. And she held it. And then she sits down, and I knew she wasn't done. She's just like, and she just sat quietly then, and I think that when people have their rampages on the page, or or rampages, sometimes with words, but also in the body and beyond words on the stage, they feel, then their bodies relax. They feel at ease. Something's rounded itself out, and there is some relief. So, but it is definitely, for trauma and sadness too, so any art is a frame that can hold, the best music comes from some of the saddest stories, right? Would you know my name if you saw me in heaven, and yeah.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with me today.
Thank you so much. It's raining.